The hot African sun beat down on the dusty streets of Lagos as Oluwaseun adjusted his silk tie, stepping out of his air-conditioned Mercedes. At 32, he had everything a man could want: a successful real estate business, a modern house in Victoria Island, and most importantly to him, a beautiful wife whose slender frame turned heads wherever they went. His success story was one that many young Lagos entrepreneurs whispered about in admiration, though few knew the demons that drove his relentless pursuit of perfection. Growing up in a modest home in Surulere, young Oluwaseun had watched his father ridicule his mother's fuller figure, making snide comments at every meal. "Women who let themselves go are a disgrace," his father would say, even as he himself grew rotund with age and prosperity. These early lessons had carved deep grooves in Oluwaseun's psyche, shaping his views on beauty and worth in ways he never fully understood. Memories of how he met Adana 5 years ago flooded his mind as he walked into his office building. It was at his friend's wedding in Enugu, where she had been one of the bridesmaids. Her delicate figure in that flowing purple dress had caught his eye immediately. Unlike many Nigerian women who embraced their fuller figures with pride, Adana was naturally slim, her collarbones visible above her dress in a way that mesmerized him. But it wasn't just her figure. She carried herself with a grace that spoke of inner confidence. Her laugh melodious as it floated across the reception hall. That day, he had watched her from afar, noting how she moved with an athlete's precision. He would later learn she had been a dancer in university. When their eyes met across the room, her smile had sent electricity through his body. It took 3 attempts before he found the courage to approach her, his usually smooth demeanor deserting him in the face of her quiet elegance. Their courtship had been swift and passionate. Oluwaseun showered her with gifts, designer clothes that accentuated her slim waist, expensive jewelry that adorned her graceful neck. He loved how tiny she looked in his embrace, how his hands could almost span her waist. When he introduced her to his mother, the older woman had frowned, muttering about how a slim woman couldn't bear strong children. But Oluwaseun had waved away these traditional concerns. His mother had pulled him aside after that first meeting, warning him that marriage was about more than physical attraction, but he had been too besotted to listen. Their wedding was the talk of Lagos City. Adana wore a form-fitting white gown that emphasized her willowy frame, and Oluwaseun couldn't take his eyes off her as she danced down the aisle. The ceremony at the Cathedral Church of Christ in Marina had been a grand affair, with politicians and business moguls in attendance. He had spared no expense, wanting everyone to see how perfect they were together. He had never been happier than in those early days of their marriage, when they would walk hand in hand along the beach at sunset, her slight frame casting a delicate shadow beside his taller one. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Adana proved to be not just beautiful but brilliant, helping him expand his real estate business into new markets with her keen insights and connections. They traveled the world together: Paris, Dubai, New York, and in each city, he delighted in showing off his slim, elegant wife. In private moments, she would tell him about her dreams of opening a dance studio for underprivileged children, and he would promise to make it happen. Though something always seemed to delay those plans. When Adana announced her pregnancy a year into their marriage, Oluwaseun was overjoyed. He hired the best doctors, imported prenatal vitamins, and made sure she had everything she needed. As her belly grew, he found himself still enchanted by her changing body, knowing it was temporary and necessary for their child. He documented every moment of the pregnancy, creating a photo album that captured her transformation from slender beauty to radiant mother-to-be. The complications began in the 7th month. Adana developed gestational diabetes, requiring her to modify her diet significantly. The doctors advised her to gain more weight for the baby's health, and though Oluwaseun supported her outwardly, each new pound added to his private anxiety. Still, he kept his concerns to himself, focusing instead on preparing their home for the baby's arrival. Their daughter Chisom was born on a rainy Tuesday morning, perfect in every way. The labor had been difficult, lasting 23 hours, during which Oluwaseun had nearly lost both wife and child. When he finally held the tiny bundle in his arms, tears streaming down his face as he thanked God for his blessings, he promised himself that nothing else would matter as long as they were healthy and alive. But as the weeks passed, he began to notice changes in Adana that stirred uncomfortable feelings in his chest. The pregnancy weight didn't melt away as he had expected. Instead, Adana's body seemed to expand further, while once sharp cheekbones softened. Her slender arms grew fleshy, and her waist, the feature that had first caught his attention, disappeared beneath layers of postpartum weight. He told himself it didn't matter, that she had given him a beautiful daughter, that she would eventually return to her former self. The changes weren't just physical. Motherhood had awakened something new in Adana, a deep contentment that seemed to make her glow from within. She spent her days caring for Chisom, singing traditional Igbo lullabies and cooking elaborate meals that filled their home with enticing aromas. She started a mommy blog that quickly gained a following, sharing her journey of embracing her new body and the joys of motherhood. But months passed, and Adana showed no interest in returning to her previous size. She embraced her new curves, saying they made her feel more womanly, more complete. She cooked rich, traditional foods and ate with pleasure, seeming happier and more confident than ever before. She finally opened her dance studio, teaching young mothers and their children, celebrating the beauty of movement regardless of size. Yet, with each passing month, Oluwaseun felt his attraction to her diminishing, replaced by a gnawing resentment he was ashamed to acknowledge. The first time he skipped dinner at home, he told himself it was just work. The real estate market was booming and his company needed his attention. But soon, he began staying late at the office regularly, making excuses about work pressure. In reality, he found himself spending time at high-end bars in Victoria Island, where young, slim women frequented. It started innocently enough, just looking, appreciating from afar. The guilt would drive him home, where he would find Adana asleep in their bed. Chisom called against her in peaceful slumber. Then he met Zainab at a charity gala. She was a fashion model whose willowy frame reminded him of how Adana used to be. Their eyes met across the room, much like that first time with Adana, but this time the electricity was tinged with danger. Zainab was everything Adana had once been: slim, ambitious, fashion conscious. She understood his world of high-stakes business and social climbing, never asking him to slow down or spend more time at home. The affair began quietly, eating in luxury hotels and discreet restaurants. Oluwaseun told himself it was just physical, that it didn't threaten his family. He still loved Adana, he reasoned, still provided for her and Chisom, but the guilt ate at him, especially when he looked into his daughter's innocent eyes or saw the heart in Adana's face when he came home late again. What Oluwaseun didn't know was that Zainab had been hiding her own secrets. She was HIV positive. She had discovered her status years before, but had kept it hidden, fearing it would end her modeling career. By the time he discovered this, it was too late. He had already infected Adana, a truth that came to light during her routine medical checkup when Chisom was 3 years old. The day Adana confronted him with her diagnosis, Oluwaseun's world shattered. She stood in their bedroom, medical papers clutched in trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. "How could you?" she had whispered, her voice breaking. "Was my weight gain so terrible that you would destroy our family?" The look in her eyes, not anger but deep disappointment, would haunt him for the rest of his life. The next 4 years were a slow descent into hell. Adana's health deteriorated despite the best medical care money could buy. The weight she had gained melted away, but not in the way Oluwaseun had once wished for. Instead, she became a shadow of herself, her body ravaged by illness. Her dance studio closed. The vibrant community she had built dispersing like leaves in the wind. Chisom, now 7, couldn't understand why her mother was always too tired to play, why the vibrant woman who used to dance around the kitchen while cooking was now confined to her bed. Oluwazun watched helplessly as his wife faded away. The guilt was overwhelming, transforming his once proud stride into a defeated shuffle. Their modern Victoria Island home, once filled with laughter and the aroma of Adana's cooking, became a sterile hospital-like environment. Medical equipment cluttered their bedroom, the steady beep of monitors replacing the sound of Adana's beloved Nigerian pop music. He threw himself into caring for her, trying to make amends, but nothing could undo what he had done. Their roles had reversed. Now he was the one cooking, trying to recreate her favorite dishes to tempt her failing appetite. He hired the best doctors, imported expensive medications, but the disease had taken hold too strongly. Each morning, he would find more of her beautiful hair on her pillow, each strand a testament to his betrayal. The Lagos elite, who had once envied their perfect marriage, now whispered behind closed doors. Friends stopped visiting, fear and judgment keeping them away. Only Adana's youngest sister, Chioma, remained steadfast, moving in to help care for Chisom and her dying sister. She would often find Oluwaseun weeping in his study late at night, but she offered no comfort. Her silence was his heaviest punishment. Chisom, their beautiful daughter, showed a wisdom beyond her years. She would climb onto her mother's bed, carefully arranging her dolls around Adana's thin frame, telling stories about her day at school. Sometimes, when Adana had enough strength, they would look through old photo albums together. "Tell me again about your wedding day, Mama," Chisom would ask, tracing her finger over pictures of her mother's once slender frame, not understanding why her father would turn away at the sight. The disease progressed relentlessly. By the 4th year, Adana could barely leave her bed, yet somehow her inner beauty seemed to shine brighter as her body failed her. She spoke to Chisom about the future, making her promise to always dance, to find joy in life regardless of circumstances. To Oluwaseun's surprise, she never expressed anger towards him, though her forgiveness felt like hot coals on his conscience. On a quiet Sunday morning, with the sound of church bells floating through the window, Adana took her last breath. She had forgiven him in her final days, which made everything worse. "Take care of our Chisom," she had whispered, her once plump hand now bone-thin in his grasp. "And learn to love yourself enough to accept others as they are." Her last words were a prayer for their daughter, asking God to give Chisom the strength to carry both her parents' love and their lessons. The funeral was a grand affair, as befitting a woman of Adana's social status, but Oluwaseun barely registered any of it. The same society that had celebrated their wedding now gathered to whisper about their tragedy. He moved through the ceremonies like a ghost, aware of the whispers, the knowing looks, the judgment in people's eyes. Everyone knew what he had done, how his shallow obsession with physical appearance had destroyed his family. The church service was packed, but he felt utterly alone. The priest spoke of forgiveness and redemption, words that bounced off Oluwaseun's grief-hardened heart. When they lowered Adana's casket into the rich Lagos soil, he felt as though they were burying his soul along with her. After the funeral, he couldn't bear to look at himself in the mirror. Every reflection showed him the monster he had become. Chisom's innocent questions about when mommy would come back broke him piece by piece. His mother took the child to stay with her, sensing perhaps what was to come. In her ancestral home in Ibadan, Chisom would be surrounded by love and protected from the harsh whispers of Lagos society. 1 week after Adana was laid to rest, Oluwaseun wrote a long letter to Chisom, explaining everything, begging for forgiveness he knew he didn't deserve. He left instructions for all his assets to be held in trust for her. Then, in the same bedroom where Adana had confronted him with her diagnosis, he ended his life. His body was found by his driver, who had come to check on him after he missed several important meetings. The years that followed transformed tragedy into purpose. Chisom grew up under the care of her grandmother, who made sure she never forgot her mother's love or her father's cautionary tale. The old woman shared stories of Adana's strength, her grace in suffering, and even found it in her heart to help Chisom understand her father's struggles with self-acceptance and the price of shallow love. As she matured into a beautiful young woman, Chisom carried with her both the tragedy of her parents and the wisdom their story taught. That true love sees beyond the surface, that bodies change but souls remain, and that the weight of shallow judgments can destroy not just lives but generations. She inherited her mother's love of dance and her father's business acumen, using both to create something meaningful from her loss. Years later, Chisom would establish a foundation in her mother's name, providing support to families affected by HIV/AIDS and promoting body positivity in Nigerian society. The Adana Foundation became known throughout West Africa for its work in combining health education with cultural awareness, teaching young people about both the physical and emotional aspects of love and acceptance. The foundation's headquarters, fittingly, was housed in her mother's old dance studio, renovated and expanded. Programs there combined dance therapy with counseling services, helping women find confidence in their bodies while providing practical support for those affected by HIV/AIDS. Pictures of Adana, both in her slender youth and her maternal fullness, adorn the walls, all of them showing her radiant smile. In the end, the story of Oluwaseun and Adana became a whispered cautionary tale in Lagos society, a reminder that love, real love, must be stronger than physical attraction, must be capable of embracing change, must see beyond the surface to the beauty of the soul within. Their story taught that the deadliest prejudices are often the ones we harbor in our hearts, and that the weight of shallow love can crush not only those we claim to cherish, but ourselves as well. And sometimes, on quiet evenings in Lagos when the sun sets over the lagoon, people say you can still hear the echo of Adana's laughter, full and rich and joyful, a reminder that true beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, and that life's greatest tragedy is not in how we look, but in our failure to see the beauty in others. In those moments, Chisom feels closest to both her parents, to her mother's limitless capacity for love and forgiveness, and to her father's final, costly lesson about the price of perfection. The Adana Foundation continues to grow, touching lives across Africa, a testament to how love can transform even the darkest tragedy into a force for good. And in every dance class, in every support group session, in every life touched by their story, the spirits of Adana and Oluwaseun live on, teaching future generations that true love must be as boundless as the African sky, as accepting as a mother's heart, and as enduring as hope itself. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.